The desperate search for a new beginning. The twin suns of Port Helios cast a blistering heat over the bustling marketplace. Among the crowd, a lone figure moved cautiously, her blue skin and violet hair covered by a worn sand-colored cloak. Lisa clutched her daughter Maya's hand tightly, shielding her from the harsh rays and curious stares. Maya's soft pink complexion and dark curls stood out even in this melting pot of alien species, drawing glances wherever they went. Lisa was exhausted. The last 3 months had been a series of relentless rejections and closed doors. As a single mother far from her home world, no one wanted to give her a chance, especially not in this unforgiving frontier town dominated by the crystalline-skinned Cephalans. To them, outsiders like her were expendable, and having a child made her even less desirable as a potential worker. "Mama, I'm thirsty," Maya whispered, tugging at Lisa's cloak. "Just a little longer, sweetheart," Lisa replied, her voice filled with the same desperation she tried to hide. They didn't even have enough credits left for a full meal, let alone a place to stay for more than one more night. Passing by a food stall filled with spiced meat skewers, Lisa's stomach growled. The Cephalan vendor caught sight of her and narrowed his 4 crystalline eyes. "Move along, blue skin. No handouts here." Her cheeks burned with shame, and she quickened her pace. Maya kept silent but clung to her mother's side as they continued their search for work, or even just a miracle. Lost in thought, Lisa collided with someone, stumbling backward. Strong hands steadied her before she could fall. "Sorry, I didn't mean to," she started but froze when she looked up into a pair of striking green eyes set in a weathered human face. The man's sun-bleached hair was neat, and his clean, simple clothing suggested a sense of discipline rare in this part of the galaxy. "No harm done," the man said with an easy smile. His voice was calm, lacking the suspicion or disdain she'd come to expect. "You should be careful, though. Some folks around here aren't as forgiving." Lisa straightened, her hand instinctively pulling Maya closer. "I'll be more careful. Thank you." She tried to move past him, but the man's gaze lingered, not with pity but with curiosity. "Name's Elliot Fraser," he said, extending a hand. "I run a repair shop down on Docking Row. You look like someone who could use a bit of luck." Lisa hesitated, unsure whether to trust this stranger. Maya peeked out from behind her cloak, her wide eyes meeting Elliot's. He crouched slightly, his expression softening. "And who's this little one?" "Maya," Lisa replied cautiously. Maya offered him a small wave, surprising Lisa with her sudden bravery. Elliot stood and gestured toward a side street. "If you're looking for work, I could use some help. Nothing fancy, just maintenance and inventory. It's not much, but it's honest." Lisa's instincts screamed at her to refuse. Kindness from strangers often came with strings attached. "Why?" she asked warily. "Why would you help us?" "Let's just say I've been in your shoes before," Elliot replied, his green eyes meeting hers. "Sometimes, all it takes is someone willing to give you a chance. A place to call home." Elliot led Lisa and Maya to his repair shop, a sprawling complex tucked between rows of docking bays. The yard was cluttered with half-dismantled engines, rusting spare parts, and a few sleek spacecraft in various states of disrepair. To Lisa, it looked chaotic, but Elliot seemed to move through it with purpose, weaving through the mess with ease. "Not much to look at, I know," Elliot said, keying open the main door. "But it gets the job done." Inside, the shop was surprisingly clean and organized. The hum of diagnostic tools and the faint scent of metal polish filled the air. A sleek courier vessel sat at the center of the room, its hull panels removed to expose intricate wiring and machinery. "This would be your main workspace," Elliot explained, gesturing toward the surrounding area. "Basic cleaning, organizing tools, maybe keeping the inventory in order once you learn the system. Room and board are included, along with a fair wage." Lisa hesitated. It sounded too good to be true. "And, the room?" she asked softly. Elliot led them to an adjacent building connected to the shop. Inside was a small apartment with 2 bedrooms, a compact living space, and a functional kitchen. The furnishings were simple but clean, and a faint scent of fresh linen hung in the air. "Basic supplies are already stocked," Elliot said. "Nothing fancy, but enough to get started. If you decide to stay, we can arrange proper groceries tomorrow." Maya darted past them, her small feet pattering against the floor. She gasped as she found the smaller bedroom, where a Real bed sat waiting for her. "Mama, look! A bed just for me." Her delighted giggles filled the air. Lisa's throat tightened with emotion. She turned to Elliot, her voice barely above a whisper. "Why are you doing this? You don't even know us." Elliot leaned against the doorframe, his expression thoughtful. "I told you, I know what it's like to need a chance. And I've got enough going on here that I could use the help. Let's call it a win-win." Lisa studied him carefully, searching for any sign of deception. But his steady gaze held no malice, only a quiet sincerity that made her chest ache with hope. "All right," she said finally. "We'll stay." The next morning, Lisa arrived at the shop before dawn. Anxiety churned in her stomach as she walked through the quiet workspace. Maya had stayed behind, fast asleep in her new bed under the watchful eye of the shop's security system, a feature Elliot had assured her was foolproof. "You're early," Elliot's voice broke the silence. He emerged from his office, carrying 2 steaming mugs. "Couldn't sleep?" "Something like that," Lisa admitted, accepting the mug he handed her. She took a cautious sip and blinked in surprise. "This is real coffee. Imported from the core systems," Elliot said with a grin. "One of the perks of knowing a few supply traders. Though I'm guessing you've had better." Lisa hesitated. "What makes you think that?" Elliot tilted his head, studying her. "The way you carry yourself. Your posture, the way you talk. You're not exactly the typical drifter." Her grip tightened on the mug, but before she could respond, a loud crash echoed from the back of the shop. A deep voice cursed in a language Lisa didn't recognize. "That would be Rex," Elliot said, his tone amused. "Come on." They found Rex, a massive human with dark skin and intricate tattoos, towering over a diagnostic panel, which was emitting a trail of smoke. "Boss, this stupid thing is fried. Again." Rex's intense gaze shifted to Lisa, and he grinned. "So, you're the new hire, huh? Welcome to the madhouse." "Rex," Elliot said with a warning tone. "Play nice." Rex raised his hands in mock surrender. "Just being friendly." Elliot turned to Lisa. "Rex is my chief mechanic. If you need anything, just ask him." The morning passed in a blur of activity. Elliot showed Lisa the ropes, guiding her through the shop's organization and introducing her to the tools and systems. But when Rex muttered something about the diagnostic panel being beyond repair, Lisa couldn't help stepping forward. "You're approaching it wrong," she said before she could stop herself. "The neural interface is inverted." Rex raised an eyebrow but stepped back with a shrug. "Be my guest." Lisa's fingers moved with practiced ease, her muscle memory taking over. Within moments, the panel flickered to life, displaying a full system analysis. Rex let out a low whistle. "Well, I'll be damned." Elliot crossed his arms, his green eyes sharp with curiosity. "I thought you said you didn't have experience with ships." Lisa avoided his gaze. "I picked up a few things, watching others work." "Aha," Elliot said, his tone skeptical but not unkind. "We'll talk later." That evening, Lisa returned to the apartment to check on Maya. She found her daughter happily drawing on a piece of scrap paper with some old styluses Elliot had given her. The sight brought tears to Lisa's eyes. Maya hadn't been this content in months. "She's a bright kid," Elliot's voice said softly. Lisa turned to see him standing in the doorway, his gaze warm. She is, Lisa said, her voice trembling with emotion. Too bright sometimes. It makes her noticeable. Like her mother, Elliot replied. His tone was low, intimate in a way that made her pulse quicken. For a moment, the air between them seemed to hum with unspoken possibilities. But before either of them could say more, the shop's comm system chimed. A message from Rex crackled through the speaker. "Boss, we've got a customer. Better get out here." Elliot gave Lisa a small smile. "Duty calls." As he left, Lisa sank into the couch, her thoughts swirling. For the first time in years, she felt safe. But the shadows of her past loomed closer, and she couldn't shake the feeling that her fragile peace might not last. Shadows of the past. The following week passed in a blur of activity for Lisa. The repair shop was busier than she had expected, with ships arriving daily in need of diagnostics, repairs, or custom modifications. She quickly adapted to the work, her long-buried skills coming back to life. Rex, once skeptical of her abilities, grew to respect her precision and efficiency. Maya, too, thrived in their new environment. She spent her days exploring the apartment, drawing pictures of spaceships and stars, or chatting with Rex, who had a surprising knack for entertaining children despite his gruff demeanor. For the first time in a long while, Lisa felt a sliver of normalcy creeping into their lives. But that fragile peace was shattered one evening when a new customer walked into the shop. The bell above the door jingled, drawing everyone's attention. Lisa, busy organizing tools, froze as the figure stepped inside. The customer was a Cephalon, a tall, crystalline-skinned alien whose multiple, glowing eyes scanned the room with unsettling precision. The Cephalon's rainbow-like shimmer caught the light as it approached the counter, its voice a smooth, calculated rasp. "Elliot Fraser," the Cephalon said, its gaze flicking briefly to Lisa. "I heard rumors you've been hiring new help." Elliot's posture stiffened, but his expression remained neutral. "Word gets around fast in a small port." The Cephalon's eyes lingered on Lisa, its gaze sharp and analytical. "She's not local. Interesting choice for a frontier repair shop." "She's qualified, and that's all that matters," Elliot replied, his tone firm. "What can I help you with?" The Cephalon's crystalline hand slid across the counter, leaving behind a small data chip. "My engine needs a full diagnostic and coolant replacement. I expect your team to be discreet." Elliot picked up the chip, his expression unreadable. "Standard rates apply." The Cephalon's eyes narrowed, the subtle tension in the room thickening. "Of course. I trust discretion won't be an issue." "Never is," Elliot replied coolly. Satisfied, the Cephalon turned to leave but paused at the door. Its gaze flicked back to Lisa one final time. "I'll be back tomorrow to check on the progress. Don't disappoint me." As the door closed behind the alien, Lisa exhaled a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. Rex muttered something under his breath and went back to his work, but Elliot remained still, his green eyes fixed on the door. "He knows," Lisa said quietly, her voice trembling. Elliot turned to her, his expression serious. "Knows what?" "That I'm not just some drifter," she admitted, her hands clenching into fists. "The Cephalon, they're connected to my past." Elliot's gaze softened, but his tone remained steady. "You said there was danger. Is this it?" "Yes," Lisa whispered, her voice barely audible. "And if he reports back to the wrong people, they'll come for me, and Maya." That night, after Maya had fallen asleep, Lisa paced the small apartment, her mind racing. She had been running for so long, always staying one step ahead of her pursuers. But now, with the Cephalon's arrival, her past felt closer than ever. A soft knock on the door startled her. She opened it to find Elliot standing there, his expression both concerned and resolute. "Can I come in?" he asked. Lisa stepped aside, allowing him to enter. He glanced around, his eyes lingering briefly on Maya, who was peacefully asleep in her bed. "We need to talk," he said, his voice low. "If what you're running from is as dangerous as you say, I need to know how to protect you." Lisa hesitated, the weight of her secrets pressing down on her. But as she looked into Elliot's steady green eyes, she realized that he deserved the truth, at least part of it. "I used to work for the Cephalon Trade Guild," she began, her voice trembling. "They're one of the most powerful factions in this sector. I was a systems engineer, designing neural interfaces for their ships. It was a high-ranking position, and I saw things they didn't want me to see." "What kind of things?" Elliot asked, his tone gentle but firm. "Illegal modifications," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "They were experimenting on ships, weaponizing them in ways that violated every treaty in the galaxy. When I found out, I tried to leave. But the Cephalon don't let people walk away, not with their secrets." Elliot leaned back, processing her words. "So, you ran?" "Yes," Lisa said, tears welling in her eyes. "I fled with Maya. Her father, he was one of them. He betrayed me when I tried to escape. I've been on the run ever since." Elliot reached out, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "You don't have to run anymore. We'll figure this out. Together." Lisa looked up at him, her heart aching with gratitude and fear. "But what if they come for us? I can't put you or Maya in danger." "They won't get the chance," Elliot said firmly. "This is my shop, my crew, and my home. And I protect what's mine." The next day, Lisa threw herself into her work, determined to maintain some semblance of normalcy. But the Cephalon's words lingered in the back of her mind, a constant reminder of the danger closing in. Elliot, true to his word, took precautions. He upgraded the shop's security system, reinforced the apartment's entry points, and quietly reached out to a few trusted contacts for information on the Cephalon Trade Guild's movements. By the time the Cephalon returned that evening, Lisa felt a flicker of hope. Maybe, just maybe, they could stay one step ahead. But as the alien inspected its ship, its crystalline eyes glinted with something unspoken. "You've done excellent work," it said, its voice smooth and calculating. "I'll be sure to recommend your shop to others." As it departed, Elliot watched it go, his jaw tight. "We need to be ready," he said quietly. "I don't think this is over." Lisa nodded, her heart pounding. She knew he was right. The Cephalon's interest in her was no coincidence, and the storm brewing on the horizon was one they couldn't ignore. The calm before the storm. The days following the Cephalon's visit were filled with an undercurrent of tension. Lisa carried on with her work at the shop, trying to keep things as normal as possible for Maya's sake. But every time the doorbell jingled, her heart raced, and her eyes darted to the entrance, expecting danger to walk in at any moment. Elliot, however, remained calm and methodical. He spent his evenings in the shop's office, poring over security feeds and reviewing reports from his contacts. Occasionally, Rex would join him, their quiet conversations punctuated by the occasional curse or grim nod. Despite the looming threat, Lisa found solace in small moments of peace. Maya had begun to see the shop as an adventure playground, her innocent laughter echoing through the halls. Rex had even fashioned a tiny toolkit for her, and Maya proudly marched around pretending to fix things. Elliot watched all of this quietly, his green eyes softening whenever Maya giggled or when Lisa caught his gaze. Their connection had deepened since their late-night conversation. It wasn't just the stolen glances or fleeting touches, it was the way he made her feel safe, like she didn't have to carry the weight of her past alone. One evening, Lisa found herself in the kitchen of the apartment, preparing a simple dinner while Maya doodled at the small dining table. Elliot appeared at the doorway, his presence filling the room with an unspoken warmth. "Need any help?" he asked, leaning casually against the doorframe. "I think I've got it under control," Lisa replied, smiling despite herself. "You've already done enough by giving us a home." Elliot stepped closer, his tone soft. It's not just a home. It's a fresh start, for all of us. Her hands stilled, and she looked up at him, the weight of his words sinking in. Before she could reply, the sound of Maya's giggle broke the moment. "Mama, look." Maya held up a drawing of a spaceship with colorful swirls around it. "Wow, that's amazing, sweetheart," Lisa said, kneeling beside her daughter to admire the artwork. Elliot crouched beside them, his presence reassuring. "What's all this?" he asked, pointing to the colorful patterns around the ship. "Those are stars," Maya said proudly. "Spaceships need stars to find their way." Elliot smiled, his gaze shifting to Lisa. "She's not wrong. We all need something to guide us." That night, after Maya was asleep, Lisa and Elliot sat together on the small couch in the apartment's living room. The faint hum of the shop's systems filled the silence as they sipped cups of steaming coffee. "She's happy here," Lisa said softly, her fingers tracing the rim of her mug. "For the first time in I don't know how long." Elliot reached out, covering her hand with his. "You both deserve that." Lisa looked down at their joined hands, her chest tightening. "I don't know what I'd do if something happened to her." "Nothing will," Elliot said firmly. "Not while I'm around." The intensity in his voice sent a shiver down her spine. She leaned closer, resting her head against his shoulder. For a moment, the world outside seemed to fade away, leaving only the warmth of his presence and the steady rhythm of his breathing. The calm didn't last long. The next morning, as Lisa walked into the shop, she found Rex standing by the main diagnostic console, his face unusually grim. Elliot was already there, reviewing a series of holographic displays. "What's going on?" Lisa asked, her voice tight. Rex turned to her, his tone unusually serious. "We've got incoming. Multiple vehicles, heading straight for the port. Military grade." Lisa's blood ran cold. "The Cephalon Trade Guild?" "Probably," Elliot said, his jaw clenched. "My contacts warned me they'd been asking questions. I was hoping we had more time." Rex folded his massive arms across his chest. "They're not just passing through. If they're coming here, they're looking for something, or someone." Lisa's mind raced. "Maya, where is she?" "She's safe," Elliot assured her. "I sent Rex to move her to the safe house last night. She's with a trusted friend. No one knows where she is." Lisa exhaled shakily, her knees nearly giving out. "Thank you." Elliot placed a steadying hand on her shoulder. "We'll deal with this, Lisa. But I need you to trust me." She met his gaze, seeing the fierce determination there. "What's the plan?" Elliot's lips pressed into a thin line. "We don't have enough firepower to take them head-on. But we've got something they don't." "Brains?" Rex offered with a smirk. "Exactly," Elliot said. "We're going to lead them on a chase. Make them think they've got what they're looking for, then lose them in the desert." Lisa frowned. "And what happens if they realize it's a trick?" Elliot's expression darkened. "Then we make sure they don't live to tell anyone." As the sound of approaching vehicles grew louder, the team sprang into action. Elliot and Rex rigged one of the shop's older speeders with decoy cargo, encrypted data chips and false schematics designed to look like valuable trade guild technology. Lisa, meanwhile, worked on disabling the shop's systems, ensuring the Cephalons wouldn't be able to track them once they fled. Her fingers flew over the console, her old skills kicking in despite the fear gnawing at her. The first vehicle rolled into view, its sleek black hull reflecting the harsh sunlight. It was followed by two more, each bristling with weaponry. A squad of Cephalon enforcers disembarked, their crystalline forms glinting menacingly as they scanned the area. Elliot stepped out to meet them, his expression calm but cold. "Can I help you?" The leader of the group, a towering Cephalon with glowing amber eyes, stepped forward. "We're here on official business." We've received reports that you're harboring stolen trade guild property. Stolen property? Elliot repeated, his voice laced with feigned confusion. This is a repair shop, not a smuggler's den. The Sethlan's eyes narrowed. Don't play games with me, human. We know she's here. Elliot's green eyes flickered toward the shop's entrance for the briefest moment before returning to the Sethlan. I think you've been misinformed. The Sethlan's crystalline hand hovered near its weapon. Search the premises. If we find anything, you'll regret lying to us. Elliot didn't flinch. Be my guest. But I'd hate to see your vehicles damaged in the process. Port Helios isn't exactly kind to trespassers. The Sethlan hesitated, clearly aware of the unspoken threat. Finally, it waved its squad forward, and the enforcers began sweeping the shop. Inside, Lisa crouched behind a stack of crates, her heart hammering. Elliot's plan hinged on the Sethlans taking the bait, and her staying out of sight. But as the sound of footsteps grew closer, she realized the stakes were higher than ever. The decoy chase. The Sethlan enforcers moved through the shop like hunting predators, their crystalline forms gleaming under the harsh fluorescent lights. Lisa stayed hidden behind the crates, her heart pounding in her chest as she clutched a small plasma cutter, her only weapon in case they found her. The tension in the air was suffocating. Outside, Elliot stood with the leader of the group, his stance calm but firm. If you're looking for stolen property, you won't find it here, he said, his green eyes steady. But I suggest you hurry. The desert isn't forgiving, and your vehicles might not last long in this heat. The Sethlan leader's amber eyes narrowed. You seem awfully confident for a man about to lose everything. Elliot's smirk was razor-sharp. That's the thing, you can't lose what's already broken. The Sethlan enforcer closest to Lisa suddenly paused, its glowing eyes flicking toward her hiding spot. She froze, her breath caught in her throat. Just as it began moving in her direction, a loud crash came from the far end of the shop. What was that? One of the enforcers barked, turning toward the noise. Rex emerged from the shadows, wiping grease from his hands and looking completely unbothered. My bad, he said casually. Dropped a crate of spare parts. Real clumsy of me. The distraction worked. The enforcer turned away, giving Lisa enough time to slip deeper into the shadows. Outside, the enforcers finished their search and regrouped. The leader looked unimpressed. Empty. As expected. Elliot shrugged. Told you. The Sethlan leader stepped closer, his towering form casting a shadow over Elliot. If I find out you've been lying, Fraser, you'll wish you'd cooperated. Elliot didn't flinch. Have a safe trip. The enforcers retreated to their vehicles, but the leader lingered for a moment, his amber eyes scanning the shop one last time. Then, with a curt nod, he climbed into his transport. As the convoy roared to life and began moving away, Elliot turned and walked back into the shop, where Lisa and Rex were waiting. They bought it, he said, his voice tight. For now. Minutes later, the decoy vehicle, a beaten-up speeder loaded with the false data, roared out of the shop's hidden back entrance. Rex was behind the controls, his massive hands steady as he guided the vehicle toward the open desert. I'll lead them far enough away to make sure they don't double back, Rex said over the comm, you get her and the kid out of here. Be careful, Elliot replied. We'll meet you at the fallback point. The plan was simple, lead the Sethlans into the desert, away from the shop and the safe house, while Lisa and Maya were moved to a secure location. But as Elliot turned back to Lisa, he could see the fear in her eyes. They're not going to stop, she said, her voice trembling. Even if Rex throws them off, they'll keep coming. They always do. Elliot stepped closer, his green eyes locking onto hers. We'll handle it. Together. The shop was eerily quiet as they prepared to leave. Elliot handed Lisa a small, handheld comm device. Stay close to me. If anything happens, you call for Rex. He knows the terrain better than anyone. Lisa nodded, clutching the device tightly. Her mind raced with worst-case scenarios, but she forced herself to focus. Maya's safety depended on her keeping it together. As they climbed into the second speeder, a more discreet model designed for speed and stealth, Lisa glanced back at the shop one last time. It had been a haven, however brief, but now it felt like just another casualty in her endless flight. Elliot started the engine, and the speeder hummed to life. "Hold on," he said, his tone calm but commanding. "This isn't going to be a smooth ride." The speeder shot out into the desert, its sleek frame cutting through the sand like a blade. The twin suns hung low on the horizon, casting long shadows over the dunes. In the distance, dust clouds marked the path of the Cephalon convoy pursuing Rex's decoy. "They're gaining on him," Lisa said, watching the comms tracker. "He'll be fine," Elliot assured her. "Rex knows how to handle himself." As the speeder climbed a steep dune, the comm crackled to life. "We've got a problem," Rex's voice said, strained but steady. "They're sending a scout back toward the port." Lisa's heart sank. "They know we're here." Elliot's jaw tightened. "How long do we have?" "Not long," Rex replied. "I'll keep them busy as long as I can, but you need to move, now." Elliot changed course, steering the speeder toward a jagged outcropping of rocks. "There's a cave system up ahead," he said. "We can hide there until Rex shakes them." Lisa's hands clenched the edges of her seat. "What if they find us?" "They won't," Elliot said firmly. "I've got a backup plan." The speeder slid to a halt at the base of the rocks, its engine humming softly as Elliot cut the power. He climbed out, scanning the horizon before helping Lisa down. The cave entrance was narrow but deep, its dark interior promising temporary refuge. "Stay here," Elliot said, his voice low. "I'll keep watch." Lisa grabbed his arm, her eyes pleading. "Be careful." He gave her a small, reassuring smile. "Always." Inside the cave, Lisa cradled Maya close, her heart pounding with every distant sound. The oppressive silence was broken only by the faint hum of the comm, which crackled sporadically with updates from Rex. The minutes felt like hours. Finally, Elliot reappeared at the entrance, his silhouette framed by the fading light. "They're moving past us," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Rex is leading them toward the dunes." Relief flooded through Lisa, but it was short-lived. She knew this was only a temporary reprieve. The Cephalons wouldn't stop until they had what they wanted, or until they were stopped for good. As the suns dipped below the horizon, Elliot sat beside her, his green eyes catching the faint light of the stars. "This isn't over," he said quietly. "But we'll face it together." Lisa nodded, her resolve hardening. Together. The fight for freedom. The cave was silent except for the faint sound of Maya's soft breathing as she slept, curled up against Lisa. Elliot sat near the entrance, his green eyes scanning the horizon. The twin moons of Port Helios cast a cold glow over the dunes, illuminating the faint trails left behind by the Cephalon convoy. "They're still out there," Elliot murmured, his voice barely audible. Lisa shifted closer, careful not to wake Maya. "Rex?" Elliot glanced at the comm device. "He's keeping them busy, but he won't be able to hold them forever." Lisa hugged her knees to her chest, her voice trembling. "I can't keep running, Elliot. I've spent my entire life looking over my shoulder. I thought I was safe here." Elliot turned to her, his expression softening. "You were. And you will be again. But we can't just hide anymore." Lisa looked up at him, her violet eyes shimmering with unshed tears. "What do you mean?" Elliot's jaw tightened. "We need to stop them. Not just for you, but for everyone they've hurt. The Trade Guild can't keep doing this, tearing apart lives, controlling everything they touch. It has to end." By the time dawn broke over the desert, a plan had taken shape. Rex, battered but alive, had regrouped with them at the cave. The three of them sat together, the harsh sunlight filtering through the rocky entrance as they hashed out their next move. "They're expecting us to keep running," Elliot said, spreading a map of the area across the cave floor. "But we're going to hit them where it hurts." Rex raised an eyebrow, a faint grin tugging at his lips. "You're talking about their command convoy?" Elliot nodded. "Exactly. The lead vehicle in their formation is the control hub for their entire operation here. Take it out, and their forces will lose coordination." Lisa's heart sank at the thought. "But how? They have an entire convoy of soldiers protecting it." Rex tapped a finger on the map. "Here," he said, pointing to a narrow canyon a few kilometers from their location. "They'll have to pass through this bottleneck to reach the port. We can use the terrain to our advantage." Elliot's gaze flicked to Lisa. "And we'll need your help." Lisa frowned, uncertainty flickering across her face. "What can I do?" "You're the only one who knows how their systems work," Elliot said. "If we can breach their defenses, you'll be the one to disable their communications." Lisa hesitated, her hands trembling. "I don't know if I can. It's been so long." "You can," Elliot interrupted, his voice steady. "I've seen what you're capable of, Lisa. You're stronger than you think." Hours later, the makeshift team prepared for their ambush. Rex loaded the speeder with makeshift explosives, muttering under his breath about the quality of the parts. Lisa worked alongside Elliot to calibrate the stolen trade guild signal jammer, her fingers moving with the precision she thought she'd lost. Maya watched from a safe distance, her wide eyes filled with a mixture of curiosity and fear. Lisa knelt beside her, brushing a strand of dark hair from her face. "You're going to stay with Rex," she said softly. "He'll keep you safe." Maya's small hand clutched her mother's tightly. "What about you, Mama?" Lisa forced a smile, though her heart ached. "I'll be back. I promise." The ambush began at dusk. The Cephalon convoy moved cautiously through the canyon, their vehicles kicking up clouds of dust as the narrow passage forced them into a single-file formation. From their hiding spot high above, Elliot watched through a pair of binoculars. "Wait for it," he murmured, his voice barely audible. Rex, positioned at the base of the canyon, held a remote detonator in his hand, his thumb hovering over the trigger. Lisa sat beside him, her nerves stretched taut as she clutched the signal jammer. The lead vehicle, a massive armored transport bristling with weapons, entered the choke point. Elliot's voice crackled over the comm now. Rex pressed the detonator, and the canyon erupted in a deafening explosion. Rocks tumbled from the cliffs, crushing the rear vehicles and trapping the rest of the convoy. Lisa's heart pounded as chaos unfolded below. The Cephalon soldiers scrambled to respond, their movements frantic and disorganized. Rex grinned, his satisfaction evident. "That'll slow them down." Elliot's voice came through the comm again. "Lisa, you're up." Taking a deep breath, Lisa activated the signal jammer. The device hummed to life, its signal cutting through the Cephalon communications like a blade. She adjusted the frequency, her hands trembling but steady. "It's working," she whispered, her voice filled with disbelief. The Cephalon forces below began shouting, their confusion evident as their comms crackled with static. Lisa's confidence grew as she continued to disrupt their systems, her old skills flooding back. Elliot descended from his position, weaving through the chaos with practiced ease. He reached the lead vehicle, where the Cephalon leader was barking orders at his disoriented soldiers. "Looking for me?" Elliot called, his voice calm but laced with defiance. The Cephalon leader turned, his amber eyes narrowing. "You," he hissed. "You're going to regret this, human." Elliot smirked, his plasma pistol raised. "You first." The ensuing fight was brutal but brief. Elliot's calculated precision and the element of surprise gave him the upper hand. By the time the dust settled, the Cephalon leader lay incapacitated, and the convoy was in complete disarray. As the team regrouped, Lisa felt a wave of relief wash over her. The Cephalon convoy was defeated, their command structure shattered. But the victory was bittersweet. She knew this was only the beginning of their fight. Elliot approached her, his green eyes soft but resolute. "You did it." "We did it," she corrected, a faint smile tugging at her lips. Rex joined them, his usual grin firmly in place. "So, what now, boss?" Elliot glanced at Lisa, his expression serious. "Now we make sure they can't come back. A new beginning." The desert winds carried the remnants of the Cephalon convoy's defeat. Smoke billowed from the shattered vehicles in the canyon below, the once imposing command convoy now nothing more than a scattering of broken machinery and fleeing soldiers. Lisa stood at the edge of the cliff, staring down at the destruction. For the first time in years, the weight of constant fear and running began to lift. Elliot placed a hand on her shoulder. "They're not gone for good," he said, his voice calm but firm. "But they're going to think twice before coming back here." Lisa turned to him, her violet eyes filled with a mixture of relief and exhaustion. "What happens if they send more?" "They'll find us ready," Elliot replied. "And next time, we won't just defend ourselves, we'll make sure they can't hurt anyone else again." Rex joined them, his massive frame silhouetted against the setting suns. "Clean hit, boss. Their comm systems are fried, and their leader won't be walking away from this anytime soon." "Good," Elliot said. "But we need to move quickly. Once word gets out, the Trade Guild will send reinforcements." That evening, back at the safe house, Lisa and Elliot worked together to gather their next steps. The safe house was small but secure, hidden deep in the desert's rugged terrain. Maya was inside, drawing happily at the dining table, blissfully unaware of the danger they'd just escaped. Rex spread a map across the table, marking key locations with a stylus. "We've got two options," he said. "We can disappear, find a new port, maybe even a new system. Or," he looked up at Elliot, his expression grim. "We can hit them where it hurts." Lisa frowned. "You mean go after the Trade Guild directly?" Rex nodded. "Their main operations hub isn't far from here. It's heavily fortified, but if we take it out, we'll cripple their ability to operate in this sector." Elliot leaned back, his green eyes scanning the map. "It's risky," he admitted. "But it's the only way to stop them for good." Lisa's heart pounded as she looked between the two men. "If we do this, we'll be painting targets on all of us. They won't stop until they destroy everything we've built." "They won't stop either way," Elliot said, his voice steady. "But this time, we have a chance to fight back." The plan came together quickly. Lisa's knowledge of the Trade Guild systems proved invaluable, allowing them to pinpoint weaknesses in the hub's defenses. With Rex's mechanical expertise and Elliot's tactical mind, they devised a strategy that was bold, dangerous, and their only shot at success. As they prepared to leave, Elliot pulled Lisa aside. "Are you sure about this?" he asked, his tone softer than usual. Lisa nodded, her determination clear. "I can't keep running, Elliot. If we don't do this now, we'll never be free." He reached out, brushing a strand of her violet hair behind her ear. "We'll get through this," he said. Together. The assault on the Trade Guild's hub began under the cover of night. The team moved like shadows, using the terrain and the element of surprise to their advantage. Lisa worked from a concealed position, hacking into the hub's systems to disable their security measures. "Doors are open," she said into the comm, "you're clear to move." Elliot and Rex slipped inside, their movements swift and precise. They navigated the labyrinthine corridors, planting charges on key infrastructure points as they went. The hub was eerily quiet, the Trade Guild clearly not expecting an attack on their home turf. As the team regrouped at the central control room, Lisa's voice came through the comm again. "You've got company. Multiple hostiles inbound." Elliot cursed under his breath. "How long until the charges are ready?" 3 minutes, Rex replied. "We just have to hold them off until then." The fight was brutal. The Trade Guild soldiers were well equipped and well trained, but Elliot, Rex, and Lisa fought with a determination born of desperation and a need for freedom. Plasma fire lit up the control room as the team held their ground, the sound of explosions echoing through the hub as the charges detonated one by one. Lisa's fingers flew over her console, bypassing locks and rerouting systems to keep the guild's reinforcements at bay. Sweat dripped down her forehead as she worked, her focus unwavering despite the chaos around her. "Final charge is set," Rex shouted, his voice carrying over the noise. "We've got to move, now." The team sprinted through the corridors as the final charge countdown ticked closer to 0. The walls shook with each explosion, the once imposing hub crumbling around them. By the time they reached the exit, the entire structure was engulfed in flames. Outside, the night sky was lit up with the fiery destruction of the Trade Guild's hub. Elliot turned to Lisa, a triumphant smile on his face. "It's over." Lisa looked back at the burning wreckage, her chest heaving as the reality of their victory sank in. For the first time in years, she felt truly free. Back at the safe house, the team regrouped, their exhaustion tempered by the knowledge that they had struck a decisive blow against the Trade Guild. Maya ran to Lisa, wrapping her small arms around her mother's waist. "Did we win, Mama?" she asked, her voice filled with innocent curiosity. Lisa knelt down, her violet eyes shimmering with emotion. "Yes, sweetheart," she said, pulling Maya into a tight hug. "We won." Elliot watched from a distance, his green eyes soft as he took in the scene. Rex clapped him on the shoulder, a rare grin spreading across his face. "Not bad, boss." "Not bad at all," Elliot replied, his gaze never leaving Lisa and Maya. As the dawn broke over the desert, the team sat together outside the safe house, watching the twin suns rise. The fight wasn't over, the Trade Guild was vast, and there would be more battles to come. But for now, they had won a hard-fought victory, and the promise of a better future felt within reach. Elliot reached out, his hand finding Lisa's. She turned to him, a small smile tugging at her lips. "What now?" "Now," Elliot said, his voice steady, "we build something worth fighting for." Lisa nodded, her heart swelling with hope. For the first time, the horizon didn't seem so daunting. Together, they would face whatever came next. And for the first time, they weren't running, they were standing their ground.